What's going on, everybody? It's Sunday. We're going to do some morning dad talk. This is a conversation I've been stewing on over the past couple of days, so please bear with me. I'm trying my best to think of ways to get out what it is I want to say. I've done a lot of talking with family members, friends, leaders of this movement that have been here for a very long time that I consider mentors. And they told me, some of these concerns, some of these things that we've been going through would be good to talk about on screen. And so that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. And I want to express a little bit of my heart with you today. I'll be honest with you. I got on here yesterday. I think I was on the screen for about 3 minutes. And one of my first calls was family law. And let me tell you what happened. You're seeing trauma play out on screen. I got triggered. Yes, I lied. I was like, man, I'm having technical difficulties, guys. I'll be right back. There wasn't technical difficulties. There was mental difficulties. I couldn't take hearing these stories. And that's very hard. It's hard being an advocate sometimes because you want to help people. You want to give them a platform for their voice to be heard. At the same time, I can relate to a lot of this stuff. And nowadays, I'm a happily married man. Yes, I've had problems with my kids, much like a lot of these guys. But I'm a happily married man. So, life's not so bad. But you come in here and you start reading some of these comments, you start hearing some of these stories, and it takes you right back to those moments. And that's why today's topic is called Why Men Suffer in Silence. I am a man that many times has suffered in silence. Not because there's not people that will listen to you. There's people that will listen to what's going on, but not everybody understands the fight for father's rights. Anytime you talk about the issues that you face with either the family courts or a certain type of women that some of us might end up with, people will look at that as women bashing or something like that, instead of saying, you know what? Maybe there's some substance behind what these guys are saying. Maybe we should listen. Maybe we are attacking masculinity. Maybe we have made it hard for fathers to be inside of their children's lives. But man, people rarely come to listen to what you got to say. They respond. Most of the people that have, will criticize what we do here at the podcast probably have never listened to the podcast. They'll see a meme and they're ready to react. That's why I think TikTok has become the next big thing, and Facebook is hurting so bad. I can get these short little videos and I can react to them, right? And the world is in such a reactionary mode instead of saying, maybe I can learn something today. Another thing, the family law movement is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, to speak up for. One, because of the corruption that goes on inside of these courts. And the more that I get involved with family law and trying to make change there, the more I realize just how crooked and big this problem really is. Guys, it's a huge problem from politics on down. There are so many people that have their hands involved in it. And so at times it can feel like the weight of the world is coming against you and you want to create some solutions, but you don't feel like anybody's listening. So what happens? We suffer in silence. I want you to watch on this page, man. I mean, watch when some of these guys come in here and pour out their heart, how quick there will be people on the outside that you never hear from until these guys speak up that come in here and try to shut them up. You want them to shut up. Uh, I'd say the same thing with the family law movement, and I want to touch on that today. You know, one thing that I think this movement in particular has been very bad at is being inclusive and realizing there is more that goes on here besides family law issues, right? I did something yesterday just because it was after that show, and I was like, man, I got to find something else to talk about today. I can't do family law. Not because I don't want to be there for you guys, didn't want to listen to the voicemail. I just was not mentally prepared to go into that today. I've been on like a 3-month break. I came back for 1 week. Let me tell you what that's like. I listen to these stories. I go inside and I try to spend time with my family, and I'm sitting here worried about one of my brothers. I can't detach from it. I can't. John Mass' story, as much as I talk about that man, I can't get it out of my mind. Here is a father that did everything the right way. If he didn't get justice, who's going to get justice? If they're not doing something about this case, what case are they going to do something about? And it just becomes so hard to detach from it. But I also wanted to foster other conversations because I know that there's, again, more going in the world than what we're talking about with family law. And hopefully, uh, okay, making sure my mic and you know, it wasn't a complete lie. Yesterday, my microphone wasn't working. So, I started off this thing without people being able to hear me. That happens on live video sometimes. It's very unforgiving, but it looks like it's working today. I say all that just to say, you know, one of the things that we put out there was, what is one of the biggest challenges that you've faced as a dad? Well, a page that predominantly talks about family law. I knew we was going to get stuff about family law, but what was surprising to me was how many other issues that were being brought up that people rarely talk about, man. And I'm going to tell you, I was a little embarrassed because I said, man, why haven't we tried to give more of a platform, to give more voices than what we have? I want to read some of these for you guys, and I'm going to get into your voicemails. And I appreciate you guys for sending those in. And please continue to do that. 762-441-0281. Many times, what this is doing when we hear from you guys, you give us the subject matter to talk about. And when we can give a platform for your voice, I don't have to talk. But I do want to listen, and I want the world to hear what it is you're going through. I really do. But I want to read some of these comments, guys, just so you can hear some of these other issues that are going on. And where do these guys have to talk about it? The one, and I'll read some of these in a second, but one of the things that really hit me the wrong way is when I did that, how many people are trying to be a dad right now that lost a spouse or that one of their kids died? You'd think that'd be somewhat of an uncommon issue. There's a lot of them, man. So I turned around and I posed that same question. I was like, how many of you are going through an issue where you had a spouse die or a child die? And what are some of the things that you've done to get over it? Don't underestimate the importance of that. Even though this is a different conversation, I want you to think about drug addicts. They will relate to a former addict way before they will a doctor, because a doctor might be able to prescribe medicines, but they don't know what it was that was going up here. There's thoughts and stuff that was going on up here that is what started that in the first place. Doctors can't see those, but that former person that went through it can. And I would say the same thing for these guys going through these issues. Somebody that's been there, they've done that. They know a little bit more on how to relate. They're a good place for people to vent to. So I want to give that platform. Can that be depressing at times? Yeah. but it's real. Let's be honest. This life is about love. And in order to love, you're going to have to hurt because those you love will one day be gone if you're not gone before them. Typically, every one of us are going to face several cases of grief before this is over, right? So it's not all going to be sunshine and rainbows. Now, I don't want to make the page depressing. I get a comment on there and it was like, man, you're making this page depressing. I don't want to read this. You need to put some more jokes and uplifting stuff on there. This is just ruining my day. What was crazy is right after that, how many parents that had lost a kid or a spouse got up under there and said, why are you trying to take this away from us? We've been waiting for something like this. Guys, there's more than the world than us. And we've got to be open to these conversations. And, I think I even saw the gentleman just get in the chat. There was one that younger guy, he's like, I'm not a dad, but I'm here because I understand the fight that these dads are going through and I want to learn. And believe it or not, that is the answer to the future generation. And let me tell you why. If we can educate these guys before they go through it, prevention is way better than the cure. So knowing that we have some of those guys in here, we want you to learn from us too. I would say for anybody that is kind of on the outside spectating this movement, sometimes it can look kind of ugly. And I get that. Guys that have had their kids taken away from them, they're out there working jobs that they could give two craps about in order to make money to support those children. That's being taken away from them to see their children because they got to go through this system that nobody can really understand. They have to pay these people to talk this foreign language to a judge in order to get their child because they don't have any God-given rights. I mean, we should, but they have no rights to that child. So what happens is these guys come in here suffering in silence. The topic is being talked about, and you're going to see all those emotions just flood out. Sometimes they can be a little hard to get along with, man. Some of the hardest people I have to communicate with is other family law advocates, and there's really a good explanation for that. These are guys that know nothing but fight or flight, right? By the time they get inside these family law courts, they got to fight for their character. They got to fight for their children. They got to fight for their finances. They got to fight for their reputation because a lot of them are going through false allegations. All they know is fighting. So if somebody disagrees with them, they're still in that mode. Be careful with that, guys. You might be having some very good support in here that you run off with that. Okay? Now, I realize sometimes we got other posts and memes and stuff like that. So a lot of people don't know how to take it, especially the ones that have never been through it. But all of us are connected through this battle if you've ever been through it. You'll see something on there and you're like, oh, that's me. I honestly believe that's why the Depp case was so big. There were so many guys out there that was like, I went through that. There was a gentleman that just got in here. I won't mention his name. I was just in Texas listening to his story, and we was talking about how crazy Amber Heard was, that she would defecate in his bed. This guy looked at me and he's like, my ex peed in my car. I'm not gonna lie, I laughed at first, but I was like, that ain't funny. But you hear some of these stories and they're just outright crazy. But a lot of people that are involved in this battle hear it and it sounds crazy. It is crazy, guys. Nobody's here. This isn't a flattering thing for people to talk about. And we need to encourage these guys to speak up. It's a very, very important thing. But let's get into just a few of these issues. And again, talking about the struggles of making content around this. Let me tell you what happened to me yesterday. Woke up, went to make the show, was on there a few minutes, heard some family law stuff, and man, dude, my mood just, especially after Thanksgiving, I was like, I got to get off for a second. And then I sat there for several hours like, I got to get on here and speak about this. I got to get on here and speak about this. And I couldn't find the words. Even now, it's a little hard, but I'm going to make sure to get this out. I went and pre-recorded an episode, a whole episode. And I'm going to tell you, it was a good episode. Not to brag, but we went through every one of these and I was like, man, this is good. This is what needed to be said. Downloaded it, went to replay it to get ready to upload it to play for you guys. My microphone wasn't on. So there was just another hit. It's like, "Oh, man. You mean I gotta go back through that emotional whirlwind, um, and do this again?" I'm doing it now, but it was at that point yesterday, I was like, "Okay, something in the universe is saying, 'Step away from it right now,' okay?" And so I wanna practice what I preach too. I do know that some of these topics, guys, can be triggering. If you're here and you're in that battle, it is so easy to let the battle consume your life. It is very indicative what I was going through yesterday with what you guys go through every single day. You're in this battle, you're fighting for your children, you're fighting for something, and it's all that's taking control up here, so you don't know how to step away from it. And let me tell you what happens there. Depression, burnout, so many different things, guys. I mean, past several months, I was so depressed it wasn't even funny. And I would sit there and ask myself, "Why? Why?" But guess what? Us men go through that, and it's okay. One of the most healthy things that we could have is to be able to talk to our brothers and tell them what is going on. Hell, I do this all the time, and I felt like I was suffering in silence. Let's make sure that we're encouraging people out there, because I'm gonna tell you, the more that they do it, the more people are gonna come and tell them to shut up. It's just the way it goes. So it's up to us to make sure we're fostering some of these conversations. With that said, I got it pulled up right here. As you can see right there on the right side, I said, "What is the biggest challenge you have faced as a father?" There was 537 comments on this, guys. I tried my best to go through there and answer everybody, make a reply. Um, it's a little small on the screen, so I'm going to read some of these over here and just hang with me for a second. Morgan Matthews said, "My 1-year-old daughter being in a coma with COVID and wasn't allowed to go and visit with her because I had tested positive too. Thankful every day for my little girl and forever thankful to Adam Brooks in the PICU." That was a real problem that was going on, man. A lot, everybody knows about this pandemic, but there was a lot of people that had family members inside of the emergency rooms, and they weren't even allowed to see them. I think there was even studies done that showed how a lot of these people got progressively worse from not having any contact with the outside world. Here it is. The thing you need the most is moral support. Could you imagine that being one of your kids? I can't. I really can't, man. Um, here's one. And I asked this gentleman to call and leave me a voicemail. I don't know if he'll see this. I still want to hear this because these are some of the conversations that I feel like have been getting overlooked. Give me a second. I got to get this coat off. It's getting a little hot now. Mr. Brian Moore said, "I'm living my biggest challenge right now, every day. My wife, Sarah Buck Moore, and mother of my 3 sons passed away 2 years ago. I remember the last day they saw their mom and her telling me to take care of my boys. I'm grateful for the privilege of fatherhood, and I realize that not only am I watching them grow, but they're watching me grow as well." A lot of times when talking to people about the family law stuff, I can relate, but it's hard to wrap the mind around how do you deal with the grief of losing a child. And I've spent many countless hours with these guys on the telephone that are grieving the loss of a child. I know a lot of times as advocates, we say, parental alienation is like grieving the loss of a living child. It's true, but there's still a chance there that you're going to be able to connect with them. What is that like when you lose this child, and how do you deal with that grief? You can't just lay down and drown in your sorrow, which would be so easy to do. A lot of them end up turning to the bottle. And again, these are going to be men that suffer in silence. Everybody will be around when it first happens. "Oh, we're praying for you. If there's anything I could do, all you got to do is ask." And then, a month or two later, it's just like silence. And so now they're dealing with this grief. But hey, man, this guy still got to get up and work. He's still got to make supper. He's still got to get clothes and everything ready. Respect to you, Dad. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I would like to know, not to trigger pain, if there's any of you guys that are going through this, What have you done to help yourself continue? I know a lot of people just do their best to block it out, maybe work. I remember what it was like when my dad passed away. I was so scared to go back to work, but work was the only thing that saved me, man. I kept myself busy. And it wasn't until I had moments of doing nothing that it really hit. I'm give you a quick story, real quick. This is one of the things I think about when hearing from these guys. It's weird how these storms come in your life, and it seems like they all happen at once. Um, Talked about this several times, but back in 2013, I lost my father. We had no warning. No warning. You know, it's one thing when you're kind of expecting a family member to pass away and you've had the warning signs and you're seeing them get progressively worse and there's almost some type of relief that hey, they don't have to go through that anymore. My dad had a kidney stone, man, and he went to the VA. I have a big chip on my shoulder with the VA. And there was a gentleman that requested me do a show and talk about these topics last night because he was sitting at the VA hospital waiting for some assistance. So I hope you are seeing this right now. But um, kidney stone, man, I'll never forget. There is this sense that we get as loving parents, as loving children. There's a connection with us dads and their kids, and in this point, there was with me. Simple kidney stone operation. All of my siblings, me included, we went to work that day. I'll never forget. I got this funny feeling, and I called my dad, and he was up in Atlanta, 2 hours away at this VA, and I said, "Daddy, I want to be there for you." And he gave me that man answer, right? He's like, "Son, you have a family to take care of. You stay at work. Do not leave work. I'm gonna be okay." And that's what all of us thought, right? Midnight that night, I'll never forget it. Never forget it. January 15th, 2013. Just turned the 15th. I got a call, and my mom said my dad was dying. Well, he had never been sick or in a hospital or anything before, so I honestly thought he just had anxiety, and I was like, "Mama, tell him to calm down." I could hear him in the background. I was like, "Let me talk to him." And I got on the phone with him. He kept saying, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe." And I was like, "Daddy, it's okay. Slow down. Breathe. I think you're having a panic attack. There's some anxiety. Slow down." All he said was, "I can't breathe." My last 3 words should have been, "I love you." But as anybody that's dealt with grief, you're in shock, right? We all, me and my siblings, get in the car to take off to get up there with my dad, who was a few hours away at this VA. And I didn't even get 10 minutes down the road. I was driving. We got a call, and they told us my dad passed away, 63, kidney stone. Dude, you want to talk about one of the most hardest moments of my life. But there's another part of this. A month prior to my dad passing away, my youngest daughter, who was 3 at the time, had developed a fever, low grade fever, but she just wasn't feeling well. Took her to the doctor several times, and they said she's just got a viral infection. It's nothing big, nothing to be worried about. Um, but it already been going on for a month when my dad passed away. Well, a month after my dad, she's still running this fever. I'll never forget one morning, I went in there and you couldn't even touch her. She would start crying in pain. She's 4 now. She turned 4 a week to the date after my dad passed away. But you couldn't even touch her. She was in so much pain. My wife at the time said, "I'm gonna take her to the hospital. We're gonna find out what's going on." She's like, "Go to work." And so that's what I did. Let me tell you those daddy senses, man. There's these feelings we get as fathers sometimes, and we try to overlook them to get through our day, but they happen for a reason. Here's another one of those instances. I get to work, and it was just like something was tugging at my heart. Eric, something's not right. I was like, man, that job wasn't easy to get away from, but I had to listen to it. And I go to my boss and I say, man, his name was Ken. I was like, Ken, They had to take my daughter to the hospital. She wasn't feeling well. I was like, they think everything's going to be okay. But I was like, I don't know why. I need to get there. It's like, I feel it. He was really cool about it. He's like, get there. And I was like, if everything's okay, I'll come right back. Guys, I get right down the road and get to that hospital, and I got there right in time. My daughter's appendix had ruptured. Okay. Now I'm being told a month after losing my father that we might have to prepare to lose my youngest child. Now, if you can imagine the thought in my head after just experiencing this sudden loss, and now it seemed like the story of Job for anybody that's followed that in the Bible is like, why is this happening all at once? So, helicopter shows up there, that hospital wasn't equipped to take care of her. Again, had to go 2 hours away to a children's hospital, Scottish Rites. If you ever have anything to do with that hospital, make sure to please support. One of the things that sucks is, I can relate with that to COVID too, because only one person was allowed to ride in the helicopter, okay, which was mom. So now here I am doing that 2-hour drive that I just had done the month before for my dad. Now I'm doing it for my youngest daughter. And all that was going through my head is I'm about to lose my baby. I remember that feeling. I'm one of the lucky ones because that hospital took care of her. She got better. Week later, she left and she came home with us. And she's right there in my house and she's doing fine. She's going to be waiting for daddy to get off here so we can go eat some lunch. But I remember that feeling and I can empathize with you guys. I might not have the words, but there is other guys, and you guys showed up yesterday and you have been through it too. We need to encourage our brothers. We need to make sure we are being inclusive. Again, there's more in the world than what we personally are going through right now. I will never stop fighting for family law, ever. But there's a lot that's been overlooked. It's not just fathers' rights, it's men in general that have been attacked. Masculinity has been attacked. They say it's toxic masculinity. I give you the fatherless statistics. Look at the suicide rates, the high school dropout, teen pregnancy, uh, substance abuse. I could go on and on and on. These are from kids that grew up without a dad. If masculinity was toxic, they should be thriving. Let's be real. If masculinity was toxic, they should be thriving. They're not. Why not? We need to make sure that we are promoting masculinity. Masculinity is attacked on TV. It's attacked inside the family courts, everywhere you turn around. So do we promote these conversations, father's rights? Yes. It doesn't mean we're bashing anybody. We're bashing the culture. You ever seen one of those episodes, where like a father's rights guy get on there with the feminists or something? What is one of the first things that happen? Every time he goes to talk, they'll just start screaming over him. And it's like they overpower the conversation. And that's no different than here on the social media, and there's only so much you can control. I mean, in the last 28 days, I can show this to you guys. 3.6 million people either like, shared, or commented on this page. I'm not going through all those comments. I don't get through all the messages. You can't. So we can't sometimes help who comes and joins this conversation. And believe you me, if you're not upsetting somebody, you're not doing something right. Okay. And the more you guys talk and encourage each other, the more there's going to be people to come and shut you down. Don't allow that to happen. Make sure you're getting in here and encouraging one of your brothers today. So I am going to get back into some of these other comments. Grant Grimm said, turning myself into the man I would like my son to become. The struggle continues. Kids follow their parents' lead. All the good wishes in the world mean nothing. You have to be the person you want them to be like. Man, how strong is that? I think one of the conversations a lot of us were having, and it was basically, it was something I had said, but I think there's anybody that's watching this show would be able to relate to. One of the biggest problems we have nowadays is making sure that our kids know that we are their dad and not their friend. There's going to always be the person, well, you can be both. Yes, you can, but you're a dad first. We are the one that provides the roadmap for these children. A boy learns how to be a man from his dad. A girl learns how she wants to be loved and treated by her dad. It is a critical piece. And make no mistake, I believe mom's part in this is just as important. Okay. We have different ways of parenting, but when you get the combination, both is best. And I'm going to tell you, dude, there's a lot of talk about shared parenting in this community. Intact nuclear family is where it's best. Think of how that is when you are trying to parent your child or give them some rules, right? And you're from a divorced family. I'm going to say you can't have the iPad every second of the day. I'm going to say you can't go out with your boyfriend tonight. I think you need to have some limits with it. What does the other side do? You can do that. Your dad's just being controlling. What happens then? You've undermined his authority and you've taught the kid they don't have to respect what their parent says. It's dangerous, man. But that usually comes from that divorced parenting and these two that don't know how to get along. Whereas in that intact family, when it's healthy, you have both parents in the household and they work together. This can be done with divorce parenting as well. We rarely see it happening. Co-parenting can happen if you realize, let's get over us. We got to make sure that we are on the same level here because they need to know they can't play us against each other. And make no mistake, kids from divorced families know how to play their parents. They know which one will allow them and they know which one won't. And they know because of the conflict that stems from those family courts, okay, that they are going to have parents that are just going to disagree and sometimes will disagree just to get under the other parent's skin. Generally, there's somebody that's got the control, okay? So it's easy to do. That is a form of alienation that is not talked about enough. When you undermine that parent's authority, just because they don't want their child getting pregnant or they don't want them doing drugs, they want them in there doing their homework or whatever. These kids need parents now more than ever. But in that divorce parenting scenario, there's so much of this that goes on. And so there's many of these guys saying, I need to be a dad, but I'm afraid because if I'm a dad, my child's not going to want to be with me. What happens? You might as well say you're about to hit the fatherless statistics on that anyway, because it's like not having a dad. He's not able to play his role. This is important, man. How many of you guys have went through that? Want to discipline your child. Kids need discipline. Think about, I'll relate this back to family law. I think one of the reasons that false allegations are as bad as they are is because somebody can say anything they want to about you. You have to go prove it's not true. And if you prove it's not true and that they did this maliciously, nothing happens to them. Now think of a kid comes from a divorced family that is doing what they're not supposed to be doing. And when that parent who made that rule for them is disrespected, and that one parent is telling the child they don't have to listen to him, they no longer fear the consequences. There is a healthy thing about consequences. And you can put it back in the kid's court. This is your choice. It's not me getting on to you. But if you don't do this, this is the consequence. You don't get your iPad for today. Or man, think of how different that is today than when we were growing up. The biggest form of punishment is I'm going to take away your iPhone or your iPad. I don't know about you guys. And I'm not promoting this by no means. Again, son of a pastor, came from a Christian family. I got my butt tore up. My dad was 6'9", size 17 shoe. And I'm going to tell you, when that thing went across my back, it didn't feel good. And I don't promote that one bit whatsoever. But I knew not to cross him. I will tell you that. I knew not to cross him. I feared the consequence. If they don't fear the consequence, I mean, you're just setting the child up for failure. Teach them to respect their elders. Teach them to abide by the rules. You know, another thing that scares me about this generation, what's going to happen when their parents or their grandparents get sick? Are they going to be the type to take care of them, or are they headed to a nursing home? This is real stuff, man. Every single one of my grandparents, I was there and took care of them. I've changed diapers, put them on the toilet, got them up, got them dressed, brushed their teeth, shaved them, gave them haircuts. I even did it for ones that wasn't my family because I wanted to take care of that generation. We are teaching this generation that they are entitled and that they don't have to listen to the rules. And you're wondering why our society is the way it is today? We've got to find that balance, guys. Sorry, got off on a little tangent. I hope it didn't bother you too bad. Let's get to some more of these. Scott Hamilton said, becoming disabled from injuries and losing my job from surgeries and becoming poor and losing the ability to provide for the needs of my family. They continue to love me, even though I'm struggling now, but I do feel pretty helpless. My art hasn't been selling lately, so it's been tough. This has been the hardest struggle as a father. Scott, dude, it's crazy. You know, I was talking about how I can relate. There's something in each one of these comments, you know, most of the time I relate to. I had a point where I was at home, thought I was Kobe Bryant playing basketball with my nephew. I went to hit a layup and I heard pop. I had completely torn my ACL. Now, at that point in time, I thought I had broke my leg. The first thought that I had wasn't the pain that I was going through. Obviously, I was feeling the pain, but that's not the first thought that was on my head. As soon as I hit the ground and realized I couldn't walk, I was saying, how am I going to support my family? I've just lost my ability to take care of my kids. Dude, and it's like those things happen all at once, Scott. That happened to me. It was just not long after that, somebody scammed my banking account, took every penny I had. And listen how they did this. Went to a Walmart in Florida and did $50 transactions over and over until they drained my banking account. I don't know how they got away with that, but that's how they did it. It was like several transactions for $50. And I didn't realize it until I had went to get lunch one day at a time that I wasn't eating and my card was getting declined. It took me 2 months to get that money back. What else happened during that time? I went through a divorce. I won't get too much into that subject, but I found out there was another relationship going on, unbeknownst to me. Everything all at once, man. Those were the days that it took everything I had, every fiber in my body to take my feet and put them outside of that bed and continue on. When I lost my job, one of the reasons why I started Dad Talk wasn't for a career. I can tell you that. The last thing, I'm not an attorney. Those are the ones that's making money off of family law. Talking about family law is not a profitable thing. But why did I start that? Because I go back to those times when I didn't think I was going to make it, that I had no motivation to get out of the bed. And the only reason I got out of that bed was because I had my daughters in that house that depended on me. I had to make sure they got to school. I had to make sure they were fed. I had to make sure that they had what they needed. At that point, I was doing it for them, no longer me, because I could have cared less if I even existed, man. And there's a lot of those guys that are this way. And it happened all at once. One of the worst things that you'll go through, especially as a divorced parent, is if you've had this relationship or this family for a while. You're used to going to work, coming home, eating supper, sitting down, watching a movie with the kids, whatever it is your routine is. Next thing you know, you're going through this and the kids have went over to their moms or whatever, and that house is just silent. You could hear a pin drop. You want to talk about depression, man. Yeah, men face depression. They just rarely talk about it. And that was a long-winded way of just saying to you, Scott, that was 6 years ago for me. Next year it'll be 7. Dude, I had no idea how I was going to make it, but I look back on that now and I turn that pain into purpose. I can sit on here and talk to you about it. When I was there, I had no idea how I was going to get out of it. None. I thought life was over for me. Dude, I found strength in that. And I now use that to empower others. No matter how bad it is right now, guys, if you hang on in there and you do the work, you say you're doing art. I did Dad Talk. Now, luckily, I had a beautiful wife that supports me. And I'm very thankful for that. So anybody that wants to say that we bash women, you're crazy. She's one of the main reasons I'm on this screen. Okay. She supported this when I'm going to tell you, many women wouldn't do that. A guy that wants to do a podcast about fathers' rights, but I'll never forget, lost my job, dude. I'd only been there a month, went there to get better money because my other job was about to go bankrupt and I had to fight a family law battle and I couldn't afford attorneys. So I went to get a better job. I'm there for 1 month. And then they tell the whole company, we're shutting it down. I was lost, brother. Originally, I wanted to call this thing Dad Talk, not Dad Talk Today, but I was a broke dad going through similar instances as you. And I went and looked up the website Dad Talk. It was $2,500. And I was like, okay, that means I'm not supposed to do this thing. But down in the suggested section, it said Dad Talk Today, $10. And I was like, okay, worst that can happen, I lose $10. I went, told my wife about it, and she said, Eric, I believe in you. Do it. And you know what, man? You guys, this is a lie. I want to speak about this because I think this is very important today. And I hope there's somebody out there that needs to hear this. There is a lie that you have to live every single day in conformity and work this 9 to 5 at a job that you can't stand because it gives you some type of security. You get to live one time. You got aspirations, you got dreams. Just because you're a dad or you've went through divorce doesn't mean you throw those away. If there's something out there that you want and you want it bad enough, you'll do the work behind it to make it work. I didn't get here from being a teenage heartthrob or because I'm the best speaker. I got here because I didn't stop, brother. Even in these moments that I shared with you guys earlier on, that I wanted to do anything but be on the screen talking about family law, I didn't stop. And that's what it takes. So if you guys got some goals, you got some dreams out there and you want to obtain them, the only thing that's stopping you is you. You got to walk before you run, but make those goals. Make sure you stay consistent in it. And remember, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. Some people might think that's ego. I think there is a fine line between arrogance and confidence. You need to be riding that line in between. You need to be confident in your ability and get out there and give it hell, man. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right. Let me get on this. How's everybody doing? I'm guessing if you're on here watching, you're not at church. I went 18 years of going to church. I had to go every Wednesday, every Sunday morning, every Sunday night. My dad used to run things called revivals. If anybody's familiar with that, there was times they would go on for a month. Okay. And that meant Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. As soon as I would get home from school, I had to go to church. And when I got old enough, I ain't going to lie to you. I was like, I'm not going back. Not because I didn't respect my dad. I'm not the biggest fan of organized religion. But I always said, you know, coming from a family of pastors, I would never, ever, 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 ever become a preacher or get in the ministry. And look what we're doing here. If you hear some of these stories that these guys are bringing here, dude, if this ain't a ministry, I don't know what is. It's because we need these resources. These men need resources. Why don't they have these resources? There was a guy that asked me yesterday, let me flap off at the mouth for a little bit longer, if you don't mind. But he was saying, Eric, I wish you would talk more about men being victims of domestic violence. They're like, because we're men, we can't suffer domestic violence. I've seen some of the arguments about this. Well, she's not as strong as him. She can't really hurt him. Dude, if I take that baseball bat over here, or I take a cinder block or my drink cup or whatever and smash you up across the face, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, that shit hurts. Okay. And then what happens when somebody attacks you? It's like, just like gaslighting when they're looking for a response. Oh, you want to react. Of course you do. You got your adrenaline pumping. Nobody should put their freaking hands on you. I don't care what gender they are. But what is going on right now? Look at those statistics with the CDC. I think it was in between 4.5 or 4.7 million men were victims of intimate partner violence last year versus 3.5 million women. There was almost 1 million more, and that's only for the men that are reporting it. It was also reported, I think it's around 70% of the time is initiated by a woman. But when a man goes through this and he looks for help, he doesn't have no domestic violence shelters. There's thousands of them in the United States of America. There's one, I don't even know if it's still open, but there was one for men. Most of them will turn you away. I tell the story about the guy that came on here that was in the Navy. Wife was beating him and his kid, wouldn't letting him sleep in the bed, trying to starve him. He was doing everything not to respond. Went to 5 different shelters, man, and said, please take us in. I'm in the military. The situation's just gotten bad. I got to get out of it. Every single one of them turned them away. Why do men suffer in silence? Because society has made them suffer in silence. No more being silent, guys. Maybe there's a conversation, there's something that you are going through right now that you haven't heard spoke about on here. Put it down in the comments. You start the conversation. Dad Talk Today support group. I made sure that group was 100% free, man. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in this community where people are selling coaching services, experts, and all that. Dude, we ain't done none of that. I want that to be your platform, 100% free. Made it private so you can get in there. Start the conversation. The only thing keeping the conversation starting is you. I'm begging you. This is one that we've got to fight against, guys. When I talk about family law, there's many cogs in that wheel. When we're talking about divorce, or we're talking about child support, or we're talking about CPS, it could go on and on and on. The domestic violence industry is its own monster. It is attached to that main thing, but it is its own monster. It is such a big industry. It makes so much money. It's involved politically. It's why a lot of the reason these politicians won't talk to you about the things that I'm going to talk to you about today, because they're afraid of losing women's votes. That's the reality. I mean, they've done such a good job at blocking men from talking these issues that these people show up here thinking they're going to shut us up. How's that working for you? No, it's not. Guys, don't suffer in silence. Make the conversation. Let them know what's happening. I know what it's like. You know, I've been busted upside the face before, feeling like every vein in my head was about to pop. And I sat there and I took it. Did I report it? Nope. Because I knew what would happen. How many of these guys are doing that? It makes me sick, man. Let me get on. Here's some more family law stuff. Brett Whitten said, telling them their mom had passed away at the ages of 12 and 8. Can you imagine what that's got to be like for a dad, telling them your mother has passed away? And in other instances, it's got to be even worse when there was this very bitter custody battle that was going on, right? Because there was already negative feelings. But that's got to be one of the hardest things that you could ever do. Ever. Anyway, let me get through some more of these comments. I've been going through for about 50 minutes. Let me ask you, was it okay? Not that I'm looking for approval anyway, but I know I'm talking about a little bit outside of family law. I want to have some of these conversations. There was a difference in today versus yesterday. I was inspired. I've been talking about these same things till I feel like I'm red in the face and my head is about to pop, man. The world many times just doesn't listen. And I want to make sure we can get everybody in here. You know, I think that's maybe one of the reasons with the family law movement why you haven't seen the big rallies. They're so inclusive. And it's, like I said, guys that are so full of emotion, it's hard for them to work together. We need to be getting them in here and healing them, right? And I realize some of the stuff that we do, again, is triggering. Be careful what you consume, guys. All right. Shane Thomas McGeegan, I hope I said his name right, said, my wife taking my children to Africa 7 years ago, never to be seen or heard from again. That is a big thing. Like, you know, we hear it in the States a lot where one parent will skip over state lines, right? But I've also, I mean, I know politicians, man, that I've talked to behind the scene that had an ex-wife that moved their kids to another country, and there's nothing that they can do. Nothing. But if society saw that and saw that he wasn't with his kids or heard, "Oh, I haven't seen him in 7 years. Oh, he must be a bad dad. He must be a deadbeat." Rarely do people look at the fight that led up to that. Again, so quick to react. So quick to react, man. Um, Let me get back to some more of these. Alex Moses said, "Seeing my son on a regular basis, my baby's mother said I stood my son up because I overslept the day I was supposed to pick him up. I worked 13 hours the night before. Now she won't let me see my son unless she's present." Well, one, that sounds like somebody that's hung up on you there, brother. Why do you have to be present in order for this man to see his son? And guys, that happens all the time. I went through that. I did. Is he abusive? And in whose standards is he abusive? Like, say the real abuse, not what you want it to be. Why do you have to be there in order for him to see his son? And then understand, you want this guy to pay child support. Maybe you want him to pay alimony. How do you think he's paying that? He's working. And sometimes that might mean his schedule is not as flexible as possible. One of the worst things these guys can go up against is they got this mom that has control that says, "This is when you see your kid. And if you don't see him, then you're not seeing him at all. Or if you want to see him, you see him on my time." Or that thinks that every moment that you have needs to be over there and they're going to make sure they're present. Why? Come on, man. Anybody can put the pieces of the puzzle together there. But I would ask the system again, why would you tell a man this is okay? Why would you make him go through that? You know, I've had those times where, like, I used to work a route job. Some people have set hours for work, some people don't. There was days I could get off at 12 or 1, and there was days I'd get off at 6 or 7. There was days I thought I was about to go home, and I came back to work, and my boss said, "Eric, you're up. We need you to go do something." Right? Needing money, needing the overtime, a lot of times I took it. Other times I had no choice. And if I was supposed to see my kid that day, but my boss said I got to go back out, I already knew what was going to happen. That sucks, man. That sucks. I feel you, brother. Don't don't let that guilt trip you. You're out there trying to provide for your family, man. Um, Another one, Seth McGurgan said, "Breaking my leg and being out of work for 3 months while being the only source of income." Dude, it was my story. That was it. It was 3 months that I was out. And I'm gonna tell you that 3 months was enough to get really behind, especially going through a divorce at the same time. Attorneys, dude, I had my credit cards maxed out. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. I love that part of his Hall of Fame speech, but it's so true, man. You guys can make it through this and it will make you a stronger person. You shouldn't have to go through it. I'm just trying to give some motivation. Diz Wavy. This is the guy I was talking about earlier. I'm going to read this one. He said, "I just want to say I'm not a father, but I wish all you guys much success and blessings. And for those going through hardships, don't give up the fight for your children. They need you. And one day they'll know the truth. Strength and guidance." You know, I went to a conference last year and I spoke about fathers' rights. And it was the most different conference that I'd ever done. There is a thing out there. It's separate from fathers' rights. You have like men's rights, then you have fathers' rights, manosphere. Uh, there's so many different names, man. It's hard to keep up. You would think that they're very much the same, but there's a difference. You know, I'm used to kind of, I guess, being in my own echo chamber. So I hear from people that know what I'm talking about. In this particular instance, I spoke in front of this room full of men, and I just kind of figured they were going to know what I was talking about, right? Afterwards, a lot of these guys came up and talked to me and said, "Man, thank you so much. I'm not a dad yet, but I'm trying to learn what to watch out for and what not to do." I was like, wow, I'm not used to hearing that one. But isn't that cool? Isn't that really where the answer was? Could you imagine some of these nuggets of knowledge that you have now from life experience, if you would have had them back then, and we realize that, let's make sure we're giving them out there, man. You know, I didn't have any boys. I always wanted one. I've got 4 girls. And I realize they got their challenges, man, and I love them to death. I love them to death. But I feel very sorry for anybody bringing up a boy in this generation. There's so much that tries to emasculate them, that tries to tell them that their masculinity is going to be toxic. There's so many traps that they can fall in. So many traps. We need to be preparing our youth. We call ourselves Dad Talk. That's what dads do. We teach lessons. They might not be our kids, but I'm going to protect all kids. And these are nuggets of knowledge. The schools ain't going to teach them that. They're going to teach them everything but what they need to hear most of the time. Let's be honest. We need to be getting that out there. So knowing that there's somebody like that out there that is watching this, thank you. Please tell your friends. Get them in here. I'd love to hear from the younger generation, man, for sure. Derek Wilmouse said, learning when not to father your children once adults and have their own families and lives. Dude, that's an interesting topic. I've struggled with that. I now have one that's out of high school, right? Going into college and stuff. And there does have to be a balance. You don't have to parent that child as much as you did when they were younger. And you got to be careful because we were all young once. We were rebellious. We did our own things. A lot of these lessons and rules that our parents had when we were younger, we didn't like them. We didn't think they made any sense. But then one day we became a parent and we found ourselves protecting ones that we love. And we say, I get it now. Have any of you guys had that moment? I'll never forget it. When I was going through some of these issues, kids turning teenagers, it was the moment I went back to my mom. My dad's not around anymore to do this with, or I'd have been having it with him too. But I went to my mom and I said, Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't get it then, but I get it now. Right. But as long as they're safe, you know, they're being safe and they've got their head on their shoulders. You sometimes got to step back and say, I've got to be dad enough to know that they've got to make some of these mistakes to learn from it, because that's how they learn. I take that back to that conversation on forced religion. A lot of people that are forced in religion, they rarely stay because they were told that's what they had to believe. Now, I've met so many people that didn't grow up in that do believe it now, and they believe it so much more because they found it. And I think that's the same with some of these lessons. You can try to force that on them, but sometimes they need life experience, and that life experience is what's going to stick. But it's hard for us as parents when we know, I know what that direction goes to. Okay. I know what happens there. I don't do that. And we do that out of love. It doesn't come from a place of control or anything. I don't want you to make that mistake. I can see it a mile away. They can't. And that can be hard for a parent to step back and do. I get it, man. Dude, you sound like a good father. Just keep in there, man. Listen to your heart. It won't guide you wrong. And I know you love them. But you know what? Here's the thing, guys. As long as you have done your best and you have gave them these morals, these lessons, and these values, you have planted those seeds. They might not sprout when you want them to, but as long as those roots are strong and it's been fed by you and nurtured with that love, it'll come back around. It'll come back around. It took me until I was in my 30s to get some of these lessons that I'm talking about right now, but it'll come back around. So hang in there, Dad. I appreciate you for commenting on that. Got a family law question right here saying, trying to be patient with everything. I fought hard to get 50-50 custody, no child support. The whole process was the worst thing I had to deal with in my life. They wanted me to have 50-50 and pay $1,200 total in child support and insurance. After we agreed for no child support protection, I had to pay $100 for insurance since he was on Medicaid. After asking my attorney to allow me to pay my own the $100, the attorney general, go figure, insisted to take it out of my paycheck. They withdraw the money, and if I get paid extra or on months where we get paid 3 times in a month, they release the money to her. So she gets about $200 a month of my money, and there is nothing I can do about it for now. It's all just frustrating, and all I want to do is be a great father and be able to give my son everything his heart desires. They will say men make it all about money, right? They hate it when you talk about child support issues. Here is a father that has 50-50 custody, right? And he's still paying the full amount in child support, even though they would have been amicable and said it, it didn't happen. I know in the state of Georgia, I got a 50-50 case. Me and the ex both said, okay, we're going to do this. No child support. She wanted to come live with dad. What did the court tell us? No, somebody has to pay child support. And he was like, why? Just the rules. But why would they force that, guys? What incentive, what sense does that make to the parents? And this guy talks about Attorney General insisted that this was going to be taken out. I'll tell you why. Title 4D. Those of you that know about it, no explanation is needed. But for those of you that don't, no explanation will do, because it is a very convoluted subject. They take a percentage off of every dollar in child support. There's an incentive from the federal government that goes back to the states. They make billions of dollars every year off of parents paying child support. So if parents aren't paying child support, the states no longer get that funding. You are hearing me correct. If they do not make parents pay child support, the states will not get the funding. There is meetings where judges talk about this and warn other judges. If you start decreasing child support, we are going to lose our funds. So does that sound like an incentive for the system to insert themselves somewhere where they're not really needed? Yes. And then what does money cause? It's going to cause problems. Whether it's a family that could have got along or not. Again, these guys are going out and working these jobs just trying to make it by. They're not rich people. But holy crap, man. If you got to pay an attorney, or you got to go to in the family law courts, you're going to pay more to an attorney than a doctor or any type of expert. Some of these guys are making $400 to $1,000 an hour. And it's these guys, some of them don't even make that in a week. They have to give everything to fight. And then the child support and the alimony. Make alimony make sense, man. You don't want to be with somebody, then go live. I don't. There's very few instances where I can see that. And I want to be fair. Somebody sits there and takes care of the kids while dad's overseas, and they agree. We're going to do this together. I'm going to support you over here while you're over there doing that. Maybe for a little bit. But some of these people getting lifetime alimony, child support, cases like this, where there is equal custody and somebody still got to pay that amount in child support. The system is screwing you. I don't know how else to say it, man. The system is screwing you. And it's guys like me and the team that I have that travel this country talking to these politicians and trying to get them to talk about this. But when they hear that they are going to lose money, so you're not even allowed to talk about it. Imagine having a problem and you're trying to fix it, but you're not even allowed to talk about it. That's what's going on. Because if they find out they're going to lose money, it is a dead subject. Dead. Mr. Mike Manny Whitney is in here. Let me. Oh, I want to read this comment. That's my buddy, man. This guy is a warrior. Mike said, there's no real 50-50 in family law. Someone is always the primary parent and someone else is the lesser parent. Ironically, it's usually the real lesser parent who is appointed the primary parent by the courts. They want a payer and a payee. How true is that, man? Let me tell you something, guys. I want you to understand this. I'm sweating. The heat is on too hot. So I hate to step away from the camera, but I'm going to do it. I got to go turn the air down. I'll be right back. Okay. But that's it, man. How can they force parents to do something that they don't want to do, especially in cases where it's amicable? Make it make sense. It's about money, guys. It's all about money. And that's why I get so frustrated with it sometimes, and I feel like I'm about to burst. It's so evident. And they do such a good job at keeping this out of the mainstream. Such a good job. And that's why I say, man, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, you are. We are all our brother's keepers. It's up to us to get that conversation out there. If we make this issue hot, you won't have to ask anybody to fight for it. You might get some, I get some hate from the movement sometimes because I'll tell you the things that other people don't want to say because they're afraid of the optics. But the thing is, the legislation isn't going to do crap for us, man. You might have some of these smaller states that have passed some of these 50-50 laws and stuff like that. But let me tell you why. They don't have the lobbyists like what we have in Texas and other states. These lawyers pay full-time salaries to make sure anything that comes in there to touch family law, they're sitting inside of that Capitol to show up and say, hey, that's a bad bill. You don't want to do that right there. We're going to give some money to your campaign, but make sure that you squash this bill. That's what's going on. Some of these smaller states, they don't have that, so they'll get through. But even with 50-50, guys, the truth of the matter is, as long as there's this bias against men in society, we're fighting a losing battle. We've got to change a culture here. We are in a war. You hear me? I don't say that in, just like an imaginary sense. This is a war. Fathers are at war, and we've got to fight it. We need all hands on deck, all hands. And that means all men's issues, not just family law. Masculinity is at stake here. And if we keep going the rate that we're going right now, it'll be gone because it's happening quick, man. And the thing about this subject, I want you to go to some of these feminist pages, okay? I get so much hell when I talk, when I'm about to talk right now, because people don't want me to talk. Oh, you're going to hurt the movement. I'm going to hurt the movement. The movement ain't ever done shit, man. Let me tell you what's going on. You go to some of these feminist pages right now and see the crap that they talk about these men. They won't get silenced. It'll be us that gets silenced. We'll get censored the second we start talking truth. Why? They want you to shut up. It's going to take everybody coming together. The fatherless issue, man, is, guys, sorry. I get heated up about it. And I believe it. And that's why, again, sometimes I say, I got to get away from it because I get so wired up. So wired up. I believe there is an uprising coming. It's going to happen. Dude, don't underestimate that Johnny Depp case. It was the first time. Yes, maybe there was some spectacle to it because it was a Hollywood thing. But it was the first time we saw that narrative attacked, right? The narrative was on the screen for everybody. And anybody that's been fighting for men's rights or father's rights was in the back saying, whoa, yes, yes. This is what we've been telling you for years. Years. But you're only listening because it's freaking Johnny Depp. Let's be honest. It's just the way it goes. Whew. Sorry. The prequel. Send in $5 respect. Thank you, my brother. Thank you. You know what, guys? Sometimes it is nice to hear that what we're doing here is making a difference. I'm not here to make a show. I'm here to make a difference. It was one of the comments I got yesterday. Eric, you're talking about people losing their spouses and their kids. You're going to lose ratings. You're going to lose followers. Nice way to run a page. I'm not here to have a popular page, brother. I'm here to make a difference. And to be different, you're going to have to be okay with being misunderstood. But isn't that indicative of what goes on with our men every single day? We are often misunderstood. One of the things that hit me so hard, man, was that comment that I made last week. Men aren't afraid to express their feelings. Nah. I sit here and hear men tell me their feelings every single day. Get down here. Look at what they're saying. Men aren't afraid to express their feelings. Men are afraid of people using their feelings against them because they find those feelings and they use it as a weakness. How many of you have been in a relationship? In order to build that love, you have communication and you show vulnerability. Let me give you the intimate parts of my life. I want to show you that I trust you with something, my hearts, my feelings. And then that's how you build love. What happens? All those little things that can push your buttons, your darkest moments, they become a weapon. Men aren't afraid to express their feelings. Men are afraid of their feelings becoming a weapon. And let's be honest, no woman wants a sappy guy anyway, right? But we should have somewhere that we can go and talk. It's just the truth of it. Whew. All right, staying on track. I said I was only going to go for an hour. I'm going to keep going. Does anybody mind? Hope you guys are enjoying this and chime in, dude. Give me those voicemails, 762-441-0281. I don't care what it is you're going through. Maybe you need some assistance. Like, dude, I've had more of this coming in lately than ever. Guys saying, man, I need to know how to potty train my kid. We should be able to help out with that, right, Dad? I tell you what was really cool. We've been getting a lot of comments in from moms saying, how can I support my husband? That one yesterday, me and my husband were newlyweds. We love each other. He hears all the time how he can support me. What I would love to hear from your page is, how can I support my husband as he becomes a new father? Man, I love that. I love that. It's the other side of the conversation. It should go both ways, right? Not happy wife, happy life, happy spouse, happy house. Why aren't we hearing the other side of the conversation? And knowing that there's somebody there that wants to hear it, guys, let's talk. Let's talk. Tell them. They want to hear that advice. If they're asking the questions and we don't give it to them, whose fault is it when nobody listens to us? When we get those opportunities, maybe you didn't see it. I'm not trying to throw shade your way. I'm just telling you, those are out there. And I'm going to start putting those questions on the page. I'm going to start getting some more of these conversations. But the world is not going to be able to hear it unless you speak. And what I want to do, instead of being a podcast or a guy that comes on and do Facebook Live, I got to have something real in here, man. I want to hear from you guys. I want to promote you, not me. If I wanted to do something right now, I'd be in the woods hunting because I get away from the cell phones and I get away from all the BS, man. I don't care what it is. Everybody needs that hobby. There's people that demonize video games. Let me tell you something. There's something powerful about being able to get on Call of Duty or Fortnite or whatever it is and get in a fantasy world and forget the world's cares for a little bit. You got to do that in balance, but don't tell me video games can't be a healthy thing for those that know how to have that balance. Make sure that you've got that today. And I hope after this show, you go and practice that. Okay. Deborah Bedoya just sent in a donation. Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you. Deborah has been watching since the very beginning, and I appreciate it so much. Philip Woody said, when I make a payment, the state will call me 2 weeks later and start asking for more and asking where I got the money. Yeah, dude, that's how that Title IV works. Let me tell you about one of my situations. All right. At one point in time, I went and got my CDL hoping I would get a better job. Okay. I didn't have a college education. I became a father at the age of 18, very early, went through a divorce. I was already, having to provide for a family. So I didn't have time to go back to a college. I had to work a job and I wasn't making much money. So the thing I could do was get a CDL, and then, insisted of doing a 12-hour workday and then driving an hour to CDL school, doing 4 hours, then coming back home and eating supper. And I did that for 3 months. But when I got done, there was a job that I thought was going to be really nice. UPS, decent paying job for middle class, right? And they told me what they tell a lot of these loaders. I was going to be working in the freight side. They said, you can't just get in here and go straight to a route. You got to work on the dock and pay your dues. But you should do this 1 month and we'll get you in full time. So what I had to do was work my first job for 10 hours. Then I had to go in there for 6 hours. Then I had an hour commute back home and an hour on the way to work. So my days were like 18, 19 hour days. But I said, a month, I can do that. That ended up being a year. Well, at least I've got a second job and I'll be getting some extra money, right? Not the case. See, my child support came out of my first check every month. A lot of you get your child support automatically drafted, right? It's pretty common. When I started working that second job, they started taking child support again. I was paying child support twice a month. What ended up happening is I ended up paying child support for me to work that second job. What should be rewarded with extra hard work, 18, 19-hour days, I'm now paying them more money that they're not even supposed to get. Now, what happened when I went to the state and said, hey, you're taking 2 child support payments. I'm already paying it. Stop. So there was nothing that they could do. Yeah, I fussed and fussed about this for months, dude. There was times on my way home from work, dude, I could barely hold my head up. I ain't gonna lie to you. Talking about men are afraid to express their feelings. You know, it wasn't too long after my dad died. I was talking about him earlier. I always kept a picture. I don't have many pictures with me and my dad, but I had one in the car. I'll never forget looking at it that night. I was crying my eyes out on the way home, man. I'm like, I'm busting my ass and I feel like I'm getting nowhere. Now, child support's taking money after I'm already paying them child support. It's like, no matter what I do, I'm not getting anywhere. It was one of those woe is me moments. And I had a reason. I was working hard, man. But after months of finally going out and talking to them, they say, you know what? There's nothing we can do about it. But what we'll do is you'll just stop paying child support early, you know, when the kid turns 18. That didn't happen. It never happened. They got that money and it just never came back, man. I understand how some of you guys go through that. I think the system is bogus and somebody should be able to get their butt sued. That's what you call theft. They are robbing these parents. And in these cases where these guys are getting 50-50 and both parents are saying they don't want no child support and the state forces that, that should be a lawsuit. You're stepping in where you're not needed. You're probably not needed there in the first place if these people can do it amicably. But the fact that you're stepping in and saying, no, you have to do this, that's criminal, man. Criminal. Then you want to take their license, the way that they get to work to keep them from being able to pay that freaking child support. This system is so broken, man. You cannot make it make sense. Anyway, I want to get to a few voicemails. You guys have left them. So, and I'm sorry about yesterday. I wanted to pour my heart out to you today. It's going to be real. It's all I can do, man. There's days where it's hard to do this. I will leave here today and I will wear this shit on my shoulders, man. I've seen these guys die. I've seen these kids die, and it feels like nobody's listening to them. Down in Texas, 14-year-old child dying of cancer. Dad's not even able to see his kid. Court's not listening. Tell me how that shit's not supposed to wear on you, man. War. You tell me that's not war? That's not a gimmick, I'm telling you right now. When you are fighting to see a child and you know they only got a couple of weeks left and you're not being allowed, that's a war, man. You can't fight a war without an army. Guys, sometimes we're going to have to step outside of our personal cases in order to do the greater good for everybody. Just keep those stories coming in, but make sure you're not holding on to those. You have the chance to empower somebody today. I listened to these guys saying that they lost a spouse or lost a child. That journey, man, can help somebody else. The guy that said his leg got broken or he can't work. Dude, I shared that with you. Let me tell you, that was a vulnerable moment in my life. Vulnerable. I guess that would let some people get them down. Man, nah, dude, it makes me happy. I got through that. And you can too. I know you can. I know you can. Be that guy that empowers somebody today. Let's find some of these other situations and get into them. I don't think I've read enough of them yet. Let's keep going into it a little bit. Victor Meha said, trying to reverse what is considered moral in this generation and society as a whole. Is that not a good one? Think about that, man. Think of how masculinity has been attacked and how that is censored. All right, now I want to take it back to, if you're one of the guys that try to speak out about it, you'll get canceled. There is things that people are going through in this movement right now, and I'm going to tell you, I've said it several times, it's about to be the next big thing to hit family law. Look up the Jeff Younger case and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You are not allowed to talk about it. If you do, you don't have a platform. That really sucks, man, but it's the truth. They have made it politically incorrect to talk about these issues. Now, how can you find solutions when you're not even allowed to speak? We're teaching our kids a completely different history because it might offend somebody. What is up with this world, man? We're afraid of hurting people's feelings. The truth is the truth. And if there is things from the past that didn't make sense, we need to know about it so we don't repeat it. And we aren't allowed to talk to our kids about it. Yes, society is coming to take away your role as dad. Only we let it. Mike Manny Whitney said, he likes when I get fired up like this. Here's a fun little fact. More children have been separated from parents by the family law industry than all wars, plagues, man-made, and natural disasters combined. And it's true. And it's true. Who all is the players, Mike? I don't do this to discourage anybody that works in this movement to not go and try to make change politically and stuff like that. But you got to remember, you have to have the majority. The establishment is so overran right now. Dude, in order to build up a resistance, you have to have awareness. And I think we need to get more attention on awareness. I'm hoping some of the things that we've got coming up will work. And I don't know. Doing this is a lot of times like throwing something against the wall and seeing what sticks. But we keep trying, right? Let me get back down here. Doug Domakatis said, having to keep my head on straight while my son was in the hospital for the first 110 days of his life. He was born super premature and they didn't know what the outcome would be. Having to be there for him, my wife, and my family during a global pandemic. Nobody could see him other than me and my wife, while still having to go to work every day, not knowing if things would work out. It was the most difficult time of my life, but I came out on the other end of it a better father and a better man. Tough times don't last, tough people do. Dude, yeah, I read that. That was why I used that saying earlier. I remember Scott Hole using that, man, but it's true. And listen to that. Dude, COVID-19 for parents, it's kind of disappeared now, right? It hasn't disappeared. Don't fact check me. I'm saying hypothetically, we don't hear about it like we used to. Be careful. It's not the way I meant it. You have to do that nowadays. But I'm just saying, when it came, that was like the number one president alienator could have had, right? They got exposed to it. They can't come to your house. Many people went through it. Many people. Theodore Busili Jr. You guys got to tell me if I'm reading these names right. I think I am. He said, trying to teach my kids responsibility and their mom is trying to be the fun parent to undermine me. That's only hurting the kids because they will have no sense of responsibility when they're older. Theodore, I'm with you. And if you didn't hear the earlier part of this show, dude, I think that is a topic that we need to be talking a lot more about. And divorce parenting, when you got that parent that undermines the other parent. I had this talk with my mom the other day, okay? She don't like it when I do it, but I was just being honest. I was very defensive of her when I was younger because mama let me do what I wanted, and I know how to play her like a fiddle. Most of the time, if I wanted something that I knew daddy was going to say no to, I would go to her bed while she's asleep, shake her. Hey, mama, can I go somewhere? Can I go with my friend? Or can I do this? She's like, oh, yeah, okay. Now, later on, when I come home, she'd be like, where you been? What did you do? I'm like, I talked to you this morning. I wasn't lying. She was like, you know not to do that while I'm asleep. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you knew. You woke up, you talked to me. I knew how to play her like a fiddle. Now, if I would have went to the old man, that shit wouldn't have flied, man. He had said no. And you know what? I thought he was mean back then, but I look at me, I was a bad kid. He was right. And I remember him telling my mom numerous times, like, you're going to regret that one day. You should have let me be a dad. I'm trying to be a dad, and you're not doing it. And I think all families go through that, right? They do, because again, we have different styles of parenting. But I've later learned, old man was right many times. Not always. He could be hard-headed too. But how many people are not being allowed to be a parent in a time in this society that we've been talking about this whole episode when kids need parents now more than ever? Ever. Thank you, Theodore, for getting that in there, man. Christopher Green said another one. I'm a single dad, so it's hard to explain and excuse my ex-wife's behavior of not being involved with the kids. Totally sucks having to ensure that they don't internalize their mother's deficiencies. That's a hard topic, man. And that's, I don't know that there is a perfect answer for that. A lot of these guys want to know, like, how do I tell them that the shortcomings of, the other parent? I don't know that we do, unless it's just like the last resort. Children's shoulders were not meant to bear the weight of their parents' problems. Think of what these problems do to you. Now, do you want to pass that on to them? And I can tell you, as a guy that hears from random strangers that I have no idea every day, and I hear their stories, and I know what that does to me, dude, it beats me up inside. Kids were not meant to bear the weight. You are doing the right thing. You're raising those kids. Take care of them. Love them. If they got questions, answer them. You don't want to lie to them. But at the same time, do everything you can to protect them from harm, to protect them from these things that are going to hurt them. Kids are pretty resilient. And they're going to figure it out. More than likely, they're going to get curious. They're going to want to know. And when they see that dad did everything he could to protect them from that hurt, I guess there's got to be balance in that too. Don't want to lie, but do what you can to make sure that their life is as good as possible. They're going through enough right now, man. They really are. Guys, I have to do something with my family in a few minutes. So what I am going to do, it felt good to come on here and kind of talk a little bit outside of the box. Excuse me. You're seeing trauma play out on screen too. I go through this crap, man. And coming in here and this stuff, it does a number on me, man. I have gotten physically sick doing dad talk. When I got back from Idaho several months ago, I went to the doctor 4 times in 2 weeks. Ended up having to go to a specialist. Sick. It was this time last year I ended up in the ER. It does a number. And that's why I say, like, the more voices that we can get and we can echo, I'd love to promote you. This past week, I've brought on several different people in the community, rock stars in this community that people need to know about, because we need to promote more leaders. Okay? We need them. But let me get to a few of these voicemails before I get out of here. I might, I don't know, man. We might even come and do this a little bit later on. If I didn't have something to do, I could have rolled all day. I'm telling you, it was weird because yesterday couldn't find the words. Just had to get a little bit outside the box. Here comes a voicemail from our first caller.
Hey, Eric, Robert, and everyone at Dad Talks today. First, just want to say thank you so much for everything you do, even when you can't get back to us in messages. I'm just so thankful you guys are here. My name is Jason. I'm from Wisconsin. I've been in a custody battle for about 5 years, and really just calling to, if you play this, ask anyone who hears this just for prayers and good thoughts my way. I have a custody evaluation coming up with a social worker on December 2nd. Really kind of nervous. I've gone through 8 false allegations. The 8th one was last October. 2 of them resulted in me losing the boys until they could finish an investigation. Just everything being done to keep me from the boys. I got a letter from my ex's fiance saying that she is teaching them sexual acts and trying to turn me in for sexual abuse with what she's teaching them. So I filed for full custody based on the alienation, trying to keep the boys from me. Nothing's happening, and that's just really frustrating. I'm sure a lot of you guys know. The guardian just doesn't care. Even after the most recent abuse allegation, they just kind of turn a blind eye to what she's doing. So now we have a custody evaluation coming up December 2nd. So just if you guys can say some prayers my way, I would really appreciate it. That, things go well. All right. Thanks so much for everything you guys do, and I'll see you on the show. Bye.
All right, man. So you heard our brother right there, man. If you got some prayers, send them his way. A couple of thoughts on that. He mentioned something about even though we couldn't get back to him in messages. Like I said, that past 3 months, dude, I had to isolate. It was one of those practicing self-care. Luckily, we have a secretary now. So if you've noticed, the messages are being gone through even a lot. It was funny. This is so funny, guys. I thought I got hell for some of the stuff that I used to post, and I tried to ride the line a little bit. It's a female that's been posting the comments lately. Very fierce father's rights advocate. And she's pissing them off even more. They're like, oh, this is just some man that's mad at his ex and got a vendetta and everything. I'm like, no, it's not. It's another mother. They don't know that. But there's a lot of work that goes into to managing social media. It's a full-time job. Instagram just hit 100,000 followers. Facebook's right around 500,000. You can't keep up with them. And so now it's two people. You know, I've been doing it by myself up until then. But now she's been posting this and she's getting more hell than I did. I was like, it's a female doing it. So it's just a little inside. I'm watching. Very, very fierce, like I said, father's rights advocate, though. So if we haven't got back to your messages, man, sometimes this is the best way to connect with us because I try to read the comments. But if you just sit there and read this, you know, I listened to Joe Rogan. One thing that he said early on, he's like, if you're going to do any type of show and make any type of difference, don't read the comments. I probably mess up with that sometimes, but I like to connect with my audience. In this particular instance, though, man, talking about these false allegations, I just want to be as real as I can with you guys right now. That is something that's weighing heavily on my heart. And my team can tell you, I've been talking about this probably the past 6 months. I'm talking about trying to make a project that, like a documentary, that chronicles nothing but false sexual allegations and false domestic violence. At the same time, we acknowledge there is real abuse. There is real sexual violence out there. And to me, somebody that could do that to a kid, there's not enough justice in the world. Make no mistake. That is one of the most disgusting things on the face of this earth. But also, people know that. They know how disgusting something like that is. And they can accuse you of that and get the upper hand in family court because they know there's no consequence for it. Imagine being one of these dads that has been hit with that silver bullet. Dude, I don't even want to imagine. And you got to be careful with it. Last thing on planet Earth I ever want to be seen as doing is talking to somebody that's done something like that. Ever. Don't call my show. If you mess with kids, if you hit kids, don't call my show. I don't care if you think you can try to fool somebody. You're not going to fool us here. But for those guys that haven't, the world needs to know how much this is happening. The majority of allegations, restraining orders are unfounded. They don't hold up in court. That's just facts. It's become because of the winner take all scenario. Imagine saying that somebody molested their kid, knowing that they didn't because they want to get the upper hand in family court, knowing that nothing's going to happen to you. It's almost murder in a way. It's character suicide. I mean, or character assassination. No matter if you can prove your innocence or not, because of that allegation, you're going to have that black cloud over your head, man. I go back to John Mast every single time on this, dude. The more I hear about his story and then walk the same trail that he did, trying to get the pieces of the puzzle together and what all he went through. I'm going to say something on this show that I've never said before. And I hope if the family sees this, they understand where I'm coming from. They don't like to talk about it much. The Mast family was Amish growing up, okay? They left it around 2004 because they said God's not going to hate us for having a car. He's not going to hate us for having electricity. Some of these rules don't make sense, but they left it. But you got to think up until then, the limits that was put on this family. You're not even allowed to look in a mirror because that's making a vain image of yourself. You can't watch TV. You don't have a washing machine. You don't have a car. And I'm telling you, in temperatures that nobody, I don't even want to be in those temperatures with a car, with the heat going, let alone a horse, working in the fields, milking cows. That's what he did. And so his life was different. So I think John socially was different than other people. So he was easily misunderstood. You know, now later on, he goes and takes these tests, these psychosexual tests, and they show he passed every one of them with flying colors, one of the lowest scores. Did you meet this family? And you will be able to tell right away you couldn't have made it against a more innocent person. loving father, did everything he could. And just watching how the world turned their back on this guy. And he ended up losing his life while screaming, "Somebody help me." That's what some of these guys are going through. And this is going to be, remember how I talked about censorship? That's going to be the topic that they're going to call you rape apologist and all these different things. And that's not what it is. I say it right here. Anybody that could do something like that to kids, don't you dare call me. But we've got to do something for these guys that are facing these false allegations. I couldn't imagine what that's got to be like for you, the stigma that gets attached. And I'm sorry. I want to find out something. I would love to do some more research. I would love to get a film out and maybe you could get some type of distribution, because the world needs to know how bad this is. What happens with us with this? Funding. Now, if I was a feminist organization, okay, or I was doing this for the opposite side, there is unlimited funding. Father's rights, not so much. Topics like this, not so much. And then the community's crazy, man. Like, people fight over donations. I hadn't asked donations in over a year, but it takes things to be able to do those projects. So I'm trying to wrap my head around that, and I am openly brainstorming with you guys. I want to make a documentary, get some of these cases that really just brings it to surface what it's like to be one of these parents going through one of those allegations. Also, physical allegations, the domestic violence industry. Let's expose it. Sunshine, disinfect, because it needs to happen. If any of you would like to contribute to that, not dad talk, check out the John Mass Foundation on Facebook. 501c3 nonprofit, tax deductible. That is a great organization. It's been hard to get that one off the ground. I do help with that, but it's been hard to get that off the ground because we've been following John's case. The sad thing about John's case, it's been pushed back 4 times now in 2 years. Here is a father that got murdered, and they hadn't even had a trial yet. There's a family waiting for some type of justice. But that organization right there, that is going to be their key focus, giving awareness to false allegations, how dangerous they are, and how much is happening. I've talked to many of you guys going through that, and I can only imagine how alone you must feel. Doesn't that go with the title of this video more than anything else that we could probably talk about? Men suffer in silence. If you're going through that problem, you are suffering in silence. You're being held back from your kid. Your character's being assassinated. Your money's being taken away from you. Your reputation, everything. And we wonder why male suicide is the way it is. It's a huge problem, guys. I wish I had the answer for it. All I know how to do is promote. And I want to do that. I'm as good as the support we get behind it. I've had ideas. If people want to contribute, want to put their name at the end of it, however, but that is something I want to get cracking, because I think the time is now. The Depp case was one of those that finally put it in the mainstream, where at least if somebody doesn't know what's going on with this, they have that case. Okay. And I think I could do a good job with that. We're balancing a few different projects right now, but that's one I want to get cracking on soon. Okay. I am getting several texts from my family wanting to know where I'm at. I wasn't supposed to be on here this long. But once I can open up and be real with you guys and just kind of say enough with the charades, enough with the politics, enough feeling like you got to act or say a certain thing because somebody in the movement will get. However, we need to have more of this right here, and we need to be open to more conversations. And make no mistake, you got that voicemail line down there, 762-441-0281. Again, 762-441-0281. I want to hear the good stuff too. If you're one of those that have gotten over your custody case, maybe you got a milestone. My kid walked today, something. Get it in there so we can find some balance. I'd love to hear it. I might be back later on tonight. If not, I'll be back tomorrow. And maybe we can continue this thing. I hope by the end of it, we got lot more voicemails from you guys. I try to go through as many as I can, but if I don't have those, I don't have anything to talk about, and I don't want to rattle off. And once I have the subject, I can flap off at the mouth, but you start it. So whatever it is you want to talk about, you're in control of it, man. I love each and every single one of you guys. I believe in this fight. It's why I'm still here. It's why we do what we do. It is a hard one, but it's worth it. Okay. I'll see you guys a little bit later on. I'm pledging to you right now. I'm going to come on here as much as I can. If there's one of these days where I say, you don't see me, I got to get a little distance from it. It's a rough topic, man. Love you guys. See you later. Never